right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Why don't you come up sometime and see me?
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
The stuff that dreams are made of.
Hi, Wendy here. Before we start off our episode today, I want to remind everybody to check us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Also, please leave a rating or comment on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. You can find us on social media by simply searching Silver Screen Time Machine, and please make sure you follow our podcast, Silver Screen Time Machine, anywhere you get your podcast. Thank you, and enjoy the episode. Hello, and welcome again to Silver Screen Time Machine, Wendy's Classic Film Review. Today we have a new guest, Dell. Hello, Dell.
How you doing, Wendy?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Dell, so tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you personally. We're starting to collaborate on some things together. You're a really, really awesome cameraman, but tell me a little bit about what you're doing.
Well, I'm a local filmmaker and actor. I love working on films when they come through town, either as a stand-in, extra, or PA, just any way to get my hand in the door, get experience with the professionals. I also do a local community theater as well. My recent productions I've done was with Mickey Spirit Little Theater, and prior before that was Stage Work Productions, rocking a shirt right now. And I also work with a team out of Cleveland called R Square Studios, repping the hat as well. And we've done like New York Fashion Week, where we film the main runway with the models, and we do BTS with the models and everything like that. And also recently we just did the 40-hour film project. Yep. And our team's name was Yellow Bridge Productions. Yep. Our film's called Salah, and we were nominated for 7 awards. For myself, it was for Best Lighting and Best Cinematography. And we won for Best Choreography for the film. And it was a great time, great crew, and it was a blast. But yeah, it's a little bit about me. We just love making some films and talking about.
Yeah, and you can see Salah, is that how you say it?
Yes.
Salah. You can see that on YouTube, I think. If you look up Yellow Bridge Productions, I believe it's on YouTube because I have seen it there. It's really, really cool. It's really worth a watch. And like I said, Dell is an awesome camera person. So
thank you, Wendy.
So since you like talking about film so much, we are going to talk about a film, and it is your pick. It is only our second Alfred Hitchcock film, but we are getting in our time machine, and we are going back to 1958, and we are going to talk about
Vertigo.
Okay. Alfred Hitchcock, let's go. Vertigo nominated for 2 Oscars, Best Art Direction, Set Direction, and Best Sound. It didn't win either. Yes. This film didn't win a lot of Oscars, it wasn't even nominated for ones I would have guessed, but I think this film didn't have a very good reception. Yeah,
that's strange. I know, because for at least my first viewing of the film, my first watch, I was like a teenager, and as a kid, that was one of my, that's why I wanted to choose this film, because it just really jumped up at me. And when I heard about that later down the line, when I first heard about it, it was already a known film and everybody more beloved. But back then, I was like, what? It wasn't received well. I was like, how? It's an excellent film.
It's an excellent film. There are some weird things about the film. We'll get into it when we talk about the plot, but let's start out about the background a little bit. This film is based on... I love when people force me to speak French names. My most favorite trying to pronounce French names. So thank you so much for that. It seems like every film I ever get has some sort of a French name person.
You're welcome.
But this film is based on a 1958 novel, D'Entre les Morts. Thank you.
Way better than me. I would have butchered it.
That is it's actually translated to The Living and the Dead by Balou Nazarjak. That was a pen name used by 2 different people, Pierre Balou and Thomas Nazarjak. Their successful collaboration produced 43 novels, 100 short stories, and 4 plays. They are credited with having helped to form an authentically French subgenre of crime fiction with an emphasis on local settings and mounting psychological suspense. They are noted for the ingenuity of their plots and the skillful evocation of mood, of disorientation, and fear. They also wrote Les Diaboliques, which also Hitchcock wanted to do that film too, but somebody else got the rights to it first. A little bit about Pierre. Pierre Balou had been interested in detective fiction since childhood, and throughout different early jobs, he would submit stories to newspapers and magazines. He was actually taken prisoner in World War II and wound up in a German prison camp, but he would eventually be released because of a medical condition. I didn't know you could be released from a prison camp. Oh, I have a medical condition.
Yeah, I'll be
Let me go, please.
It's like you end up in prison. You use a medical condition.
Excuse me, I have diabetes. Please let me out. But anyhow, he was released. He would then work as a social worker, helping the disadvantaged before turning back to writing. Thomas Nazar-Jacques was originally born Pierre Arrault. He wanted to be a fisherman, but he had lost an eye in a childhood accident. It doesn't say how. He would recreationally fish on a river with two hamlets called St. Thomas and Nazar-Jacques, which is what he eventually chose as his pen name. He studied philosophy and would become a professor of philosophy. He would also write crime novels on the side. One of his essays would reach Pierre Ballou, and they would start up a correspondence and eventually began collaborating on novels together. But so that was the actual writers. And then the screenwriters, there were 3 screenwriters involved in the writing of Vertigo. Hitchcock had originally hired playwright Maxwell Anderson to write a screenplay, but he rejected his work, which was entitled Darkling, I Listen. That was such a better name. Yeah. Darkling, I Listen. But that is actually a quote from John Keats' 1819 poem called Ode to a Nightingale. That's where he got that. He didn't just throw that title together. A second version was written by Alec Copel. Again, he left the director dissatisfied. Alfred Hitchcock was quite particular about his screenwriters, yes. Very particular. He did this a lot. He rejected a lot of screenwriters. Yes, he did. The final script was written by Samuel A. Taylor, who was recommended to Hitchcock due to his knowledge of San Francisco. And he wrote the screenplay from notes by Hitchcock, not based on what Alec Copel had originally written. Among Taylor's creations was the character of Midge. That was not in the original. Taylor attempted to take sole credit for the screenplay because, from what I understand, he actually wrote it. But Copel protested to the Screenwriters Guild, which determined that both writers should be entitled to a credit, but not the first guy, Anderson. He didn't get a credit. But a little bit about Alex Copel. He was a Australian-born screenwriter, novelist, and playwright. He started out in advertising, but then turned to writing and spent the majority of his career in London and Hollywood, specializing in light thrillers, mystery, and sex comedies. He was nominated for an Academy Award for The Captain's Paradise, which I'm not familiar with that film, but good for you, dude.
Yeah.
Samuel A. Taylor got his start writing plays on Broadway and became successful with his hit play Sabrina Fair, which was adapted to the film Sabrina, Audrey Hepburn film. Yep. He was nominated for an Oscar for that screenplay. However, his film career faded after the initial box office failure of Vertigo, though Hitchcock and Taylor remained frequent collaborators. He was often contracted to write drafts for Hitchcock's later films, such as Torn Curtain, though Taylor's only other Hitchcock screenplay, apart from Vertigo, was for Topaz 1969. Cinematographer. Oh, you must like this guy. Yeah, this is the exciting stuff here, the cinematography. Cinematographer Robert Burks. This guy is a frequent collaborator with Alfred Hitchcock. This was his guy, his go-to guy. Yeah, he is a 4-time Oscar nominee. He did win an Oscar for To Catch a Thief, which is a Hitchcock film. He collaborated on many Alfred Hitchcock films, Rear Window, North by Northwest, but he also did The Music Man, which interesting change of pace. He was also a close personal friend of Hitchcock. The experience Burks gained in forced perspective miniatures in his early days at Warner Brothers also stood him in good stead on Vertigo, from that Mission Tower, which we'll talk about that later too, and then North by Northwest, the Mount Rushmore scenes, and The Birds. Because of his expertise, Burks was often able to contribute ideas to shooting scenes more effectively, sort of like you do. He was also an innovator in the application of both telephoto and wide-angle lenses as a means to creating a specific mood. Now, the sad part is he died in a house fire at age 59, supposedly caused by falling asleep while smoking in bed. It killed him and his wife.
That's tragic. It really is.
You might find this stuff interesting. The film stock of the camera negative was Eastman 25 ASA tungsten balance 5248. I mean, you know what that means. I don't.
I mean, not that particular. I know the Kodak ones, but not those little older ones.
Well, this was 1950. Yeah. 8, with processing and prints by Technicolor. It was the first film to use the dolly zoom, an in-camera effect that distorts perspective to create disorientation. That was used to convey Scotty's acrophobia. The technique is often referred to as the vertigo effect in reference for its use in this film. It's when they do that.
They zoom in with the camera but pull back the dolly. Or vice versa, and it gives that really that surreal feel.
Yeah, so they pull back the camera on the dolly at the same time they zoom in. Yeah,
yes.
yeah, that's exactly what it. Yeah, VistaVision. They shot this in VistaVision, which is a higher resolution, widescreen variant of the 35 millimeter motion picture film format that was created by the engineers at Paramount Pictures in 1954. In many ways, VistaVision was a testing ground for cinematography ideas that evolved into 70 millimeter IMAX and Omnimax film formats in the 1970s. Both IMAX and Omnimax are oriented sideways, as is VistaVision. Mm-hmm. Okay, our editor. Now, again, this is another Hitchcock guy. He did almost all of Hitchcock's movie. This is George Tomasini. I don't think this guy gets enough credit.
And I agree.
This guy he was only nominated for one Oscar.
It just is
never won.
Like guys like these, they literally edit the best films of all time, and they don't get the credit. Dude, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, and it says that he was one of the greatest editors ever. He was several years under contract to Paramount before joining Alfred Hitchcock to collaborate on 9 projects with Alfred Hitchcock. He is known for his innovative film editing, which together with Hitchcock's stunning techniques, redefined cinematic language. Tomasini's cutting was always stylish and experimental, all the while pursuing the focus of the story and the characters. His dialogue overlapping and use of jump cuts for exclamation points was dynamic and innovative. Tomasini was a master of time and space in editing to heighten suspense and determine mood. Most of Hitch's best films were strongly driven by editing, including this film. George Tomasini's techniques would influence many subsequent film editors and filmmakers. And on a 2012 listing of the 75 best edited films of all time, which was compiled by Motion Pictures Editors Guild based on a survey of its members, 4 films edited by Tomasini for Hitchcock appear. No other editor appeared more than 3 times on this listing. The listed films were Psycho, Vertigo, Rear Window, and North by Northwest. And yet he never had an Oscar. Only nominated once.
Only nominated once, and he placed in the top. I don't get it.
Yeah. And another sad story. Poor Hitchcock's crew, I mean, maybe he drove them to early graves, I don't know, but he actually died in this editing chair. He died while editing the picture in harm's way, and he was only 55 years old.
I didn't know that. That's wow. All his go-tos. I know it's sad. It's sad. I didn't realize. I'm like, this is getting very, very tragic with these.
He stressed his people so much that they died at early. Well, he didn't force the guy to smoke in bed, obviously.
Yeah, but it's just maybe he was thinking about something. Okay, he got me on something. Alfred got me on that.
The score. Okay, the score is going to be another Hitchcock guy, Bernard Herrmann, and boy, Bernard Herrmann is one of the ultimate greats. Oh, his scores are absolutely amazing. Sadly, again, although he is a 5-time Oscar nominee, he only won 1 Oscar for The Devil and Daniel Webster. And score is the sort of thing where people get nominated 30 nominations and they've won. If you look like somebody like Elmer Bernstein you have millions of, and then you win all these, and then Bernard Herrmann only won. It's amazing. Yeah. His father encouraged him to study music, and he would study at Juilliard. He was hired by CBS as a staff conductor and would meet up with Orson Welles when he was in radio with his Mercury Theater and other programs. Herrmann would often create scores for Welles's programs. So when Welles made his first film, Citizen Kane, as we all know, he would call upon Herrmann to write the score, which gave him his start in Hollywood. Herrmann would wind up being a favorite of Hitchcock's, collaborating with him on 7 films. He is especially known for his score in Psycho.
Yeah, it's classic.
A notable feature of the Vertigo score is the ominous 2-note falling motif that opens the suite. It is a direct musical imitation of the 2 notes sounded by the foghorns located at either side of the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. This motif has direct relevance to the film because the horns can be clearly heard sounding in this manner at Fort Point, the spot where a key incident occurs involving the character played by Kim Novak. What could it be? Suspense. We're creating suspense in this podcast.
Where's the music at?
Director Martin Scorsese described the qualities of Herrmann's score. Quote, Hitchcock's film is about obsession, which means that it's about circling back to the same moment again and again, and the music is also built around spirals and circles, fulfillment and despair. Herrmann really understood what Hitchcock was going for. He wanted to penetrate the heart of obsession. You do hear the circular sound to the music. It definitely. I have a lot of notes about the music. Herrmann deeply regretted he was unable to conduct his composition for Vertigo because there was a musician strike in America, so it was conducted in England and in Austria by Muir Matheson. Herman always personally conducted his own works, and given that he considered this composition among his best works, he regarded it as a missed opportunity. He is widely regarded as one of the greatest film composers. There's a quote that says, over 4 decades, he revolutionized movie scoring by abandoning the illustrative musical techniques that dominated Hollywood in the 1930s and imposing his own peculiar harmonic and rhythmic vocabulary, end quote. Yes. And he is also known for Taxi Driver. I don't know if a lot of people know that he did the score for
Taxi Driver. Scorsese, yeah, no, that's one of those ones I didn't know until actually just recent myself, because I was watching Taxi Driver not too long ago, and I was like, wait, what? And that's, it's one of those reactions, and because I haven't seen it. It was one of those ones I seen a long time ago, but at that time, I was just watching it for that. But more appreciating music and everything as older I got and realized he could post that. That was awesome.
Yeah, he's quite good.
Yes.
Last but not least, of course, is our director, Alfred Hitchcock. Nominated for 5 Oscars, never won an Oscar. They hated him, and they did not want to give him an Oscar.
I don't get it. I wish I knew. I wish I had a time machine to go back then to sit there amongst the
Academy.
Yeah, the Academy. Yeah, and just be like,
what are you thinking about, people here?
Yeah, made no sense. I mean, he's like one of the. Sorry,
yeah, it's frustrating. Yeah. It's very frustrating. I think there was a lot of studio
behind this.
Yeah, Hitchcock sort of bounced from studio to studio. He wasn't really with a lot of studios, and I think that hurt him, is that the studios would put forth their guys.
Especially back then, they always went lockdown there.
Yeah. Hitchcock initially trained as a technical clerk and copywriter before entering the film industry in 1919 as a title card designer. So in silent films, he would design the title cards. His directorial debut was the British-German silent film The Pleasure Garden in 1925. He would go on to direct several successful British silent and sound films before being contracted by David O. Selznick to come to Hollywood. His first Selznick film was Rebecca. He had creative differences with Selznick and would move on to different studios, like I said, with most of his successes in the 1950s. He also had a successful television show called Alfred Hitchcock Presents. I think many people know that. And he was also very well known for his cameos in his films. He has cameos on almost all his films. The Hitchcockian style includes the use of editing and camera movement to mimic a person's gaze, thereby turning viewers into voyeurs and framing shots to maximize anxiety and fear. Here's some interesting facts about Alfred Hitchcock. He was phobic about eggs, especially with runny yolks. He would never eat them in any form.
Did not know that.
Yeah. And also he was afraid of the police. He was phobic about the police. As a child, Hitchcock was sent to the local police station with a letter from his father. The desk sergeant read the letter and immediately locked the boy up for 10 minutes. After that, the sergeant let young Alfred go, explaining, "This is what happens to people who do bad things." And as a result of that, he never learned to drive. Why? Don't know why that correlates, but that was kind of a horrible thing to do to a small child.
It is. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. He was widely regarded as one of the most influential figures in the history of cinema. In a career spanning 6 decades, he directed over 50 feature films. And just a little note, his favorite film is Shadow of a Doubt, of his own films, which is also my favorite. Okay. Any other thoughts on the crew?
No, I loved the whole crew, loved everybody, and they just were just an amazing team and collaborators, and that's what I love about that. You can get your go-to guys, you can rely on them, and you just create beautiful work with.
Yeah, it's nice to have people that work well with you and you're used to collaborating with, and that kind of know your vision without you having to tell them.
Exactly, just on the same page, especially after they get the rhythm, get the language, they know they can probably just literally just look at each other and be like, yep, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's it, a simple look, and that's it.
Yeah, so. They said eventually Hitchcock didn't even collaborate with Bernard Herrmann. He just trusted him. Mm-hmm. He would just put whatever Herrmann wants, whatever music he wants to put over, he'll put over on that. He didn't even interfere with that.
Yeah, he just knows. Yeah, it was just I love it.
Yeah. A little bit of trivia, a couple trivia notes before we get into the plot. The opening title sequence, designed by Saul Bass, makes this the first movie to use computer graphics. Sir Alfred Hitchcock was embittered at the critical and commercial failure of this movie in 1958. He blamed this on James Stewart for looking too old to attract audiences anymore. Hitchcock never again worked with Stewart, previously one of his favorite collaborators.
Yeah, he was a go-to guy. I know.
He looked the same way he looked when he hired him. It's all James Stewart's fault. He looks so ancient.
I'm like, it's like, that's a good way to talk to one of your go-to guys.
Yeah, like what the heck? But then it doesn't get much better, because in a later interview, Sir Alfred Hitchcock said he believed Kim Novak was miscast and the wrong actress for the parts. So he hated everybody in this film. He hated all his actors.
I knew it was a this film was very close to him. And I know, I guess after hearing that reception from, he's blaming on everybody.
Everybody but Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah, Alfred Hitchcock.
Couldn't be him.
But even then, like, instead of just blaming the people, not, hey, no, you guys don't understand it. We made magic here, you know, but which everybody, years later, of course, now we know, but
excuse me, Alfred, you cast them.
I know, right? It's just like...
It's on you, buddy. All right. Even though another trivia reference says second unit camera, I think this is really interesting piece of trivia. Even though another trivia reference says that second unit cameraman Erman Roberts invented the contra zoom, which is our little dolly zoom thing, the effect is oddly similar and nearly identical to a zoom and vertigo shot seen in Hobson's Choice, 1954, where a drunk Henry Hobson is seen falling down a shaft into the basement of Freddie Beanstalk's shop. Vertigo was released 4 years later than Hobson's Choice, and other special effect elements in the movie oddly mirrored what was in Hobson's Choice, which is a David Lean film. And if you're going to copy anybody, you might as well copy David Lean for visuals. Because he is awesome. And Jack Hildyard was the cinematographer on Hobson's Choice. A very good cinematographer as well. Hitchcock frequently dined at Ernie's on his visits to San Francisco, which is the restaurant. And he enjoyed it so much that he cast the restaurant's maitre d' and bartender in Vertigo. And they were flown to Hollywood for filming on the Ernie's set. At least he didn't think they were miscast. Get angry at them. It's all their fault.
I know. He's just like,
those maitre d', he just didn't do it right. Vertigo premiered in San Francisco on May 9th, 1958 at the Stage Door Theater. While Vertigo did break even upon its original release, earning $3.2 million in North America distributor rentals against its $2,479,000 budget, it earned significantly less than other Hitchcock productions. That's why they called it a box office flop. In 1996, the film underwent a major restoration to create a new 70mm print and DTS soundtrack, which is, I think that's probably what I watched.
Yeah. I think that's the one that we seen. Yeah, we got the 70mm because I don't know. At least that's the one I watched as well.
Yeah, I think that's the go-to one. Yeah, because I don't even know if I'm sure there might be an original version maybe out there if you could do some digging, but I know that's pretty much everyone you've seen that's online where you buy. You know, it's definitely their restored restoration. I mean. So. Yeah. All right. Let's get into it.
Righty.
Let's start talking about Vertigo.
All right.
Start right off the bat. There's just this close-up of a woman's face, not Kim Novak.
I know, yeah. And she did. I know she did. She volunteered. She wanted to do it, but then I forget.
He had already planned it. Yeah. They had already planned that part. They were already filming it. And Alfred Hitchcock was never one to say, well, let's wait around for so-and-so. Yeah, he was like, let's get started. So there's this close-up of the woman. It starts, I think, close-up of her lips. And then it goes to her eyes, and the credits start going over her face, and then it turns red, and then that swirling graphic comes out of her eye, and then you have your really dramatic Bernard Herrmann music here, and the music itself is very swirling and repetitive, circling, like I said, and then the swirl goes back. It has director. It's a really interesting credits.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite opening title sequences. It just instantly sucks you in. It just draws you in over. It's like, all right, this you don't even know you're about to watch. You're just like, wow, this is, I don't know what's going on. Just opening credits and title, and I'm already invested.
Yeah, it's interesting right off the bat, and it's also very identifiable. You see that, and you know you're watching Vertigo.
Exactly.
You're not confused. What film is this?
Exactly.
And then we start right into the film. And then the music here is interesting, too. It's a running sounding music. He's very good at mimicking with music what's going on the screen, I think. It has this running sort of sound, and you see a man being pursued over the rooftops. A lot of this film is quite dark.
Yes.
Very hard to see. I think it's a reflection of this is supposed to be a very gritty darkness.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, I feel the exact same way. Like just right from the get-go, because even when I was watching now, because I had to make sure my brightness was like, wait, hold on, my brightness low.
Exactly.
But definitely want to set that tone. It's just really from just the get-go, right off with the rooftop chase action. Don't know what's going on. Just throws you right in, and it's like you said, you don't even know who's the good guy or the bad guy.
You don't know what's going on. You just see these people running. You see a policeman running,
and
then you do see James Stewart, and then this is when they're chasing, and he drops, and he's hanging by the gutter, and you can see down below him, and this is the first example of the dolly zoom right off the bat.
Yes,
they do it right off the bat, and then the policeman's trying to help him and trying to get him up, and unfortunately the policeman falls over. And we don't really see how James Stewart gets out of that situation. I guess he just hangs there for an extended period of time.
He was just faking it the whole time. I was just tired. I was just hanging around.
He just climbed right up after that. He's like, oh, I'm fine.
I know. He was like, Jeez, man, I didn't feel like chasing the guy.
Yeah, but we don't get any real explanation as to what happened. You just suddenly, the next thing you know, there's a fade to black, and he's in this apartment, this loft with Midge.
Yes.
Let's talk real quick about some of the actors. I guess we mentioned James Stewart. Let's talk real quick about James Stewart. He plays John Scotty Ferguson. Why his nickname Scotty, I don't know, but okay. Nominated for 5 Oscars, won Best Actor for The Philadelphia Story, and he also won an honorary Oscar. Born and raised in Indiana, PA. Mm-hmm. Father owned a local hardware store. He was an athlete in football and track, as well as a singer and an accordion player, which I think is a real crying shame that they never get that in any of his films. They couldn't get him playing the accordion somewhere.
Not even holding it. My own thing, nothing.
He doesn't even sing, I don't think. I can't think of any roles where he sings. Like, if he was such a good singer. That's a shame. They said he also did some acting. He would attend Princeton to be an architect, but then became more involved with theater and music. While in stock theater, he met Henry Fonda, who would become a lifelong friend and followed him to Hollywood. He would have breakthrough roles in his early career in Frank Capra films in the late 30s and early 40s before being drafted into the Air Force during World War II and actually flying combat missions over Europe. Despite having been a decorated war hero in World War II, he declined to talk about this, in part because of the traumatic experience he had in killing others and watching friends die. The roles he chose after returning from the war were generally darker, some say because he was hardened by combat. He didn't have to be in combat. When you were an actor, they kind of gave you a cushy job in the Air Force. Yeah. And that's what they wanted him to do at first, and he insisted on going and being in combat.
I know. I guess his heart. I guess he's wanted to just go. I know he's really want to serve his country. I mean,
he was a big patriot.
Yes.
Yeah. He was a very big patriot. James Stewart. There's a couple cute quotations of him. It says, one of his quotes is, "Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing a Jimmy Stewart imitation myself." So sometimes I wonder. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing a Jimmy.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm very proud of my Jimmy Stewart impression. And then it said, "I'd like people to remember me as someone who was good at his job and seemed to mean what he said." The next one, "There ought to be a law against any man who doesn't want to marry Myrna Loy."
just random. I was like,
these random quotes.
I love that quote. It's like that's it. That's it. Like, oh, no more to that.
There ought to be a law. No man want to marry Myrna Loy.
You got to do the whole interview. You got to do the whole podcast like that.
Yeah, and the James Stewart. Actually, they said he didn't like being referred to as James Stewart. And then the last quote: "I don't act, I react." Said he never had an acting lesson in his life.
It's natural. He's
known for It's a Wonderful Life, Rear Window, Harvey, Anatomy of a Murder, and we could go on and on. Yes. He's known for many, many films. Yeah. Okay, so we talked a little bit also, we introduced the character of Midge, so we'll mention her. Midge was played by Barbara Bell Geddes. She was nominated for 1 Oscar. Her father, Norman, was a well-known theatrical and industrial designer. And actually, reading about Norman Bell Geddes, or whatever the name is actually really interesting as well. He innovated a lot of cool things and created all sorts of interesting products and stuff. So anybody that has some spare time, check that out. She had a very successful early stage career, including originating the role of a Maggie in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof on Broadway. She was also able to have some success in film in the late 1940s and early 1950s until she was temporarily blacklisted by the House Un-American Activities Committee when she would go, and at that point she would go back to work on the stage. She would eventually go on to star in the television show Dallas as Miss Ellie, which became her most recognizable role. After retiring from acting in 1990s, she would go on to write children's books and create greeting cards. I actually really like her in this film, probably better than I like. I think she has much more of a rapport with James Stewart than Kim Novak does.
I know. I really enjoy this. I really enjoed her character a lot.
Yeah, like they're back and forth. They're a little back and forth, and they seem to have like a nice,
little cute,
they're very in tune with each other.
Yeah,
what are you thinking, James Stewart? Look, what a nice relationship you have with Midge.
That's actually one of the things about the film I really enjoyed, actually, how it's very relatable, because that's how it goes for some. You have someone right there. It's just a very, beautiful woman, just very on the same, just
they were just like, they'd be talking, and they'd know exactly what each other was saying when they, I love that,
Yeah,
I talk about that later on, too.
Yeah, sorry.
Anyhow, so now, so where we're at, we're in the loft. We're in Midge's loft. Midge is an artist, actually a fashion designer, maybe, because she's she's designing lingerie and stuff. So James Stewart, Scotty, whatever he's named, John Scotty, he he has a cane. He's saying how he has a corset. So obviously, while he was doing all this hanging on a roof, we were to learn that he somehow got injured as well. So they don't explain that very well either. Anyhow, Midge is asking him, why are you quitting the police force? And he talks about his acrophobia and vertigo. And he's saying, he can't do it. And then she starts talking about this bra, and then people wonder why this whole thing about this cantilever bra, why is this so prevalent in the film? But this is actually a reference to a bra that Howard Hughes had designed for Jane Russell in The Outlaws. He designed this weird, uncomfortable bra for her to wear.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was a reference to that. And then I wrote, Midge and Scotty supposed to be in college together? Question mark.
Sorry.
Like, really?
Yeah, when I heard that, I was
They
like,
look about the same age, not?
I'm like, I was like, I didn't.
That's suspending disbelief.
Yeah, that's
Okay, yeah, they're the same age. No. And then Scotty mentions up meeting with his old friend Gavin. And I wrote, there's a lot of lighthearted banter in the scene. And then Scotty says he's going to beat the acrophobia because he's going to get adjusted to heights bit by bit. And he tries stepping up on a step ladder. But then when he gets to the top rung, he has this vertigo attack and he falls into Midge's arms. And you get the impression right off the bat that she really cares for him. Yeah, she really likes him.
Yeah, and I still, once again, love the shot again. And then even when he falls into her hand, it's that carrying, then the music plays and then the fade to black after. No, I just love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's... Yeah. We could probably talk this whole podcast literally about editing and camera. I mean, there's so many great examples. Although I didn't think they had a ton of camera movement. I've seen films with a lot more camera movement than this.
No, it was a lot more just a lot more just kind of cutting, static, some more just little moving, just very slow pushing, which I love because it makes you just really feel in the moment. It wasn't very fast, it was just kind of just really just setting the mood and just really putting you in the scene.
Yeah. I feel like there's more work on the editor here than the cameraman.
Yeah, a lot of it is just,
yeah. So there's a film dissolved. There's a new scene, Scotty visiting Gavin at his office at the shipyard. And anybody who's paying attention may see a familiar face in the scene. We won't give that away. And then they're in the office. Gavin said, there's a lot of foreshadowing right in the beginning. If you're paying attention and you listen. Gavin says he's married into this shipping business, so that sort of makes you believe that his wife is wealthy. That's the impression you get. And then also he says her family's gone. So she's the only. Yeah, she's the only one. You could get the impression she might be some sort of an heiress. And then, what do they have? A rear projection of these cranes out the window? That doesn't look real. You know what? Hitchcock and his rear projection. I'm sorry. There are many great things about Hitchcock, but the rear projection, it drives me nuts, and it is prevalent all through this film, and it just makes me want to pull my hair out. And any of my listeners know how I feel about rear projection.
It'd be very disjointed. Go from rear projection to a normal onset, then back to rear projection, back and forth.
Yes, and it doesn't even look remotely real.
It's a little disjointed.
And then also I said, sometimes it looks matted, like a picture matted in the background as well. He does that too. So I noticed lots of use of red. You see all the red in this film? Red carpets in Gavin's office. The red at Ernie's.
Yeah, Ernie especially.
There's a lot of red and there's a lot of green. There's a lot of symbolism with colors. Gavin asked Scotty to follow his wife. And then, you know what? They do some interesting angles here in some of these scenes. There's an interesting angle when he's asking who's threatening your wife, and Gavin says somebody who's dead. There's a very low angle on him. It's like pointing like almost straight up.
Yes, yeah.
A low angle beneath chin, I wrote. And then there's a quick zoom out from James Stewart. So you get some different camera angles in here from time to time. Not a lot, not all the time. This isn't Citizen Kane per se, but you get a lot of different camera angles.
A lot of subtlety, yeah. It's like I said, a lot of show, just a little subtleties, the low angles, just to show
But I wondered though what he said. Why is he putting the low angle when he said somebody's dead? Just because it's a dramatic part? But why not close up, pull in close up for something dramatic? I don't know. I just wonder what.
I know when these shots like that, when you do the low angle, of course you want to do it's like a power shot. Well, when he does low angles,
because he's a power.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And I think it may foreshadowing more so with the conversation with his character. It's still a little more. At least that's what kind of takeaway I have for that.
Yeah, that makes sense, and that's why they shot Orson Welles in so many low angles as Citizen Kane was to convey the power. Yeah. Gavin believes his wife is possessed by somebody dead. Scotty is, of course, skeptical. He doesn't really believe that, and he talks about how his wife goes into trances. And this is interesting when they're talking, and Gavin is moving further and further away, and he's in a totally different room, and he's all the way across the room, and then Scotty moves further away into the other side of the room. They're in two different rooms, and they're complete opposite sides of the room, and I'm like, that's odd.
It is. was actually one of the shots I picked up too, but I really didn't really get the chance to
Yeah,
really
what?
kind of
What does that mean? Are they
splitting
distant?
apart?
Is the distance? Are they becoming further apart because of the skepticism? He doesn't believe, and their friendship, in a way, is getting further. I don't know.
No, that could be that's a really good take on that because because we of course go further in, but yeah, I mean that'd definitely be good. The extra foreshadows, that key intro, especially when you introduce a new character. Some filmmakers want to throw a lot to convey, just a lot in visuals and not just you know telling you, but just seeing like the low angle shot. And then, like you said, that was a good point of that separation, which I didn't really pick up. It just seemed odd, but I didn't really think about it. It was one of those like, okay, maybe just going, but you made a good point on that. So it really could be.
Yeah, they're not doing a big two-shot of them all the way across the room. What they're doing is cross-cutting between them both, the close-ups to both of them, or not even necessarily close-ups, but you see the cross-cutting between them when they're talking. Gavin wants Scotty to do private eye work, and Scotty's like, I don't really want to do that. I can get you a firm of private investigators. But then Gavin lures him in by saying, just come and see my wife over at Ernie's. Just come and get a look. And then you get this film dissolve, and there's a nice pan up to the door at Ernie's, which... This is an interesting thing, too, about Hitchcock, is these outdoor locations are real on-location shots, but Hitchcock didn't like to shoot on location, so what he'd do is he'd take the establishing outside shot, and then he'd go and create a set that looked exactly like the inside of the restaurant, and he'd shoot it on a soundstage.
Exactly. He wanted to control everything, you know, and which I get, because some filmmakers, want to control light, everything, no interruption, which I get that, you know. Sometimes I love that, and I have that same feeling. Sometimes it's great just to have full control, but then you lose sometimes the authentic, you know, it depends on money, this and that too, but I agree. I see, but definitely his take on his point.
Yeah, so almost everything you'll see from the outside is the actual location shot, and then once it goes inside, it's most likely on the soundstage. Yes. You're not shooting any location stuff from the insides. So, okay, there's a nice zoom out from James Stewart. You get a close-up of James Stewart, and that zooms out to a whole view of the room, which is really cool.
Yeah, nice.
And then a slow zoom to Gavin and this woman with her back to us. We don't see her at first. And Scotty's watching them, and then you see this close-up of Kim Novak. And then there's a different kind of music here, a sort of love song type of song. There's violins playing. It's a very violin string type sound. It sounds very romantic. And I wrote, we think Scotty is suddenly smitten. He sees her and he's smitten all of a sudden, right off the bat.
Right off the bat. Because even the shot, you said the music, especially the music, even the shot where it just, if you notice, not like anamorphic shot, but the way it was the rack focus type, it really want to be like the mesmerized. Just, you know, and I love that shot. When at first, it was really, because she comes in with her, I love her outfit, her costume. Her gray suit. Yeah. And
which apparently she wears nothing but the gray suit. She has no other outfits. Or she has a whole closet full of the same gray suit. I don't know which.
But yes, but I love that, but yes.
And the thing about this is when I say going on to the next scene, these scenes sort of just cut from scene to scene to scene. There's not really any real transition between scenes. They'll be in one place and then they're in the next place. This is sort of the jump cutting thing that George Tomasini does to sort of build up suspense and keep things interesting. So the next scene is he's sitting in a car outside the building. So now we realize that he has, I guess, decided to follow her. There's no follow-up conversation with Gavin where he talks about that, but then you just know he is doing it because he's sitting there watching her. And she comes out and she gets in her green car. Yep, green car. And Scotty starts following her. Now, here comes my unhappiness. But I even wrote right here in my notes, now we have to deal with rear projection. See, it's not so bad in the scenes where he's shooting point of view, Jimmy Stewart point of view shot. Those are kind of nice, even though obviously the frame of the car doesn't look realistic to me. But at least the stuff in front looks realistic. It's just when they shoot facing Jimmy Stewart and you see the cars in the back, totally obvious rear projection drives me crazy. But please try to pass along that because there are a lot of car scenes in this film, so please try to ignore that. He follows her down this alley. She goes into this building, and then he follows her. There's some very suspenseful music. It opens up the door into this flower shop, and then the romantic music again. And I wrote, flower shop doesn't look real. Like, is it matted in?
Like, you know,
the background?
Yeah. What actually threw me, I felt like, I don't know, it looked like the alleyway they pulled out stuff for customer parking, but it seemed like a shadow entrance. It was like it felt mysterious when he looked through. It seemed like, but is that the main entrance? Because it seemed like, I felt like it was like a backdoor entrance.
The back door. It did look like a backdoor entrance.
But yeah, that was odd. At least for mine, when I looked at it, I was like, wait, was that the back door or front door? But he's peeking in. It's like the main entrance for everyone to go through. But, that was like the only thing.
Yeah, it looked like a back door or a side door to an alley. But her holding the flower looked real. But the background of the shop itself looked like, to me, painted matte. It didn't look like a real shop.
Like, it looked like it was one that was definitely very distorted. It looked like you just wanted to have, the background looked really odd. Like you said, even the sides,
it looked odd. It didn't look real.
Like,
it didn't look three-dimensional, I guess.
Exactly. I don't know if I was deliberate where he wanted you just to hone in, like, his vision just on
her and the flower.
That's what my take was, because it was distorted, and I agree. It didn't look like a natural, like, oh, that's how you'll see in a normal room, this background out of focus. But no, it looked
matted. Yeah. Okay, so they're back in the cars, yay. Nice cutting to show different angles in the car, from the front, from the driver perspective, and from the side. So they have a lot of different angles that they put in there. And lots of Scotty POV shots, which, like we said earlier about Hitchcock, he likes his POV shots, and they're actually very cool.
And I do love all those shots.
I like them too.
Yeah, and it's a slow build up. I love it, because even though when they show those reproduction shots, I know, but just the whole sequence when he's following her.
And the music too.
It really puts you in. You just really like, I'm in the car, like, what's going on?
Yeah, the music is excellent in these car chase scenes, because it's not a car chase even. It's like a very slow following of her, and the music just reflects it so beautifully. This is a really interesting scene when they go through the church into the graveyard. Now, there's a low angle on Jimmy Stewart when he first comes into the graveyard. And I really like the point of view shots where the camera is moving as him almost. That's really, really great. Yeah. Really great. And there's lots of cross-cutting here. I wrote the lighting is interesting on Kim Novak. Is there some soft focus here? Yeah.
It seemed like it was, because I don't know if they used it back then, almost like a mist type filter where it creates not that like fog, but a very definitely a distinct look.
It reminds me of the soft focus they used in Sound of Music in some of the scenes. That's why I wondered if it was soft focus.
Yeah, it was definitely either soft focus, because those mist filters, it makes the image actually soft. So if they use like the mist or some type of filter or something they used in the camera, because I don't know how far back, I should know, but I don't know how far back when he started utilizing that type of, say tech.
Well, we don't expect you to be that. We don't expect you to know the history of film lenses. I mean, we expect you to know some, but not the history of film lenses.
But I think it was definitely a distinctive look, which creates a soft focus. Yeah. So definitely.
Yeah, and the lighting, too. There's something they did interesting with the lighting. I'm not a lighting expert, but the way they lit Kim Novak in that particular scene, she's looking at this tombstone, so after she leaves he goes to look at the tombstone and it says Carlotta Valdez, and he takes a picture. That's a big clue. That's the beginning of this all. And the next thing they do is they go to an art museum. He's just basically following this poor woman all over the place. He's turned into a total stalker.
I was straight stalker.
Yeah. And she's sitting on a bench. Again, there's the cross-cutting shots. There's the tracking shot on Scotty as he walks around admiring the pictures. And there's more suspenseful music, and then the flowers, close up to the flowers, and then close up to the flowers in the picture, close up to the hairstyle, close up to the hairstyle in the picture. It's interesting. I said the music here is very interesting, kind of light, like tiptoeing with the suspenseful sort of theme throughout. It's different than some of the other music.
It really is, because it really puts you, because that's I love how because it is very slow paced. I really like that stalking feel following, because we're in Jimmy Stewart's, or James Stewart's,
Don't call him Jimmy.
I know, James Stewart's shoes, so we're all feeling just like him. He's piecing things together, and we're piecing at the same time.
Yeah,
so
we don't. Yeah, exactly. We don't know what's going on any more than he does.
Exactly.
We're all like, we're as confused as he.
Yes.
So he's sort of the entry point for the audience as well, yeah. And then he goes and Scotty goes and asks the employee, what is that photo? And he says, oh, that's a portrait of Carlotta. So he's like, okay, this Carlotta lady. And then the next is this McKittrick's Hotel. And there's a really beautiful shot with the church in the background when he first gets there. And I said, there's a lot of beautiful architecture here. And I believe all these location shots, all these outsides are location shots. Yes. He sees Madeline in the window getting sort of undressed. This is a voyeuristic type part, I thought.
It was like, I know she moved the curtain.
She moved the curtain,
Yeah, and then I think she was doing something, but just like a little bit of
it's like she took off her jacket and you could see like her camisole underneath or something. There's just a sort of voyeuristic feel to it right there.
Yeah.
And then he goes and he talks to this lady clerk who I really like. This lady clerk was pretty funny. I thought, she was good. The actress's name, just for reference, is Ellen Corby. I don't have any info on her, but Ellen Corby, she was pretty funny in this film. Yeah. So he's asking about her. This lady doesn't want to give him any information, so he shows some sort of a badge, and then she tells him the lady's name is Carlotta Valdez, and he's like, "Geez, Louise." Yeah. And he says, "Don't tell her I was here asking questions." And she said, "She's not. What do you mean she's not here? She hasn't been here." And he's like, "What do you mean? I just saw her come in." And she's like, "No, she's not here. Look, her key's here on the rack." And then he's like, "Go up and look." And she goes up and look, and
she's like,
she's like, "Why don't you come up and look?" And there's a nice shot of her looking down the staircase.
Yeah,
That's
good.
really
I
cool.
love
And then
that
him
shot,
going
yeah.
up the staircase. And he goes into the room and it's empty. And he's like, what? And then he looks out and her car's gone. He's like, where's her car? Her car's gone.
Yeah.
And the lady's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
What
so
car?
making things like,
Yeah, she's like, okay, this policeman's a little loony. But
Yeah.
then you're like, what was that all about
Yeah,
anyway?
like-
Because even when you get to the end of the film, you're like, well, wait, what happened? Was she there or not there?
I think all that
Did
was-
he imagine that?
I think it was all maybe less ultimate.
Did she have some sort of
setup.
a secret trap door somewhere?
I think so.
Yeah.
My take was just because I thought the exact same thing. Actually, I was like, were they trying to make it was in his head, or was this a setup as well?
Yeah,
that's
true.
what- yeah.
We have to be careful on spoilers on this one.
Oh, yeah,
We're
okay.
going to have to skip a section of
Okay.
this film to
Okay.
avoid spoilers
Okay.
because they do a little reveal 3/4 of the way through the film. We're going to have to skip the reveal.
Gotcha.
And then, just because
Just
I
in
think,
case.
yeah. And then right away, like I said, these scenes just cut from one to each other
Mm-hmm.
to another. He's back at Midge's. He's asking her about local historians, and I wrote, "There's some witty banter here." There's always really good witty banter
yeah.
between them. They really have the best relationship in the film.
I think the writing for that was just done beautifully
Yes.
and perfectly. Just
Yeah.
because the audience, we watching it, you're loving it, and you just like, come on.
Yeah,
you know?
don't forget the guy Samuel A. Taylor. He added that
Mm-hmm.
character of Midge, so maybe he put her in to add the sort of witty banter to get a little bit off the constant
Yeah.
dark heaviness of
And
this
then,
film.
that's what he did. Well, that's excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. She says, you have to talk to Pop Leibel. What a name. Pop Leibel.
Yeah.
And they go to the bookstore and talk to them, and he remembers Carlotta. He tells the story of Carlotta, says she came from a mission settlement. This stuff is all very important.
Mm-hmm.
There's a rich man that found her singing and dancing in a cabaret and built her a house. They had a child. Apparently, this was a married rich man, and then he got rid of Carlotta and kept the child. Said she became poor, and then she became mad. She went around asking people where was her child, and then she committed suicide. And then I noticed when he starts talking about, at the beginning, everything's fine in the shop and whatever, but when he starts talking about Carlotta being mad, the light starts to diminish
Yes.
very slowly outside, and then by the time he finishes the story, it's dark
Yes.
in the thing.
And at first I thought it was something wrong. I was like, wait, did my TV go to sleep mode or something? But no, it was deliberate.
It's
yeah.
like the story went into dark mode,
Yeah,
so the
exactly,
whole
yeah.
thing became dark, and it's just within a matter of minutes. So it's
Yeah.
not like we're going over time here
No,
or
it's
anything.
just all within that. Yeah.
And then even when they get outside, it starts out very dark, and then it starts to lighten up as well.
It does. When he goes
Yeah.
outside, it lightens back up again.
Yeah,
You know,
it's like after the heaviness of the story dissipates, then they're back to it's very symbolic.
Oh,
It's
yes.
very interesting symbolism.
I love it.
Then it shoots to them in the car. He tells Midge what's going on, basically, and she wants to know if Madeline is pretty. And Scotty says, "Oh, yeah, I guess she is." And then Midge gets infuriated and walks out the car. And it's quite apparent throughout this film that Midge is definitely in love with Scotty, and he
Yes.
doesn't think of her that way at all. Then he's looking at this picture of Carlotta, which then fades into a close-up of Madeline, and then back to the picture. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's
It's an interesting editing tricks, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it does.
Then you get back to Gavin and Scotty. They're sitting in the club having drinks. Gavin tells them that Madeline inherited Carlotta's jewelry, that Carlotta was Madeline's great-grandmother. All of a sudden now this information is coming to light.
Like, I know.
That was apparently not important to tell before. And they said the McKittrick Hotel was the old Valdez home. Gavin says Madeline doesn't know anything about Carlotta. Gavin says her mother told him about Carlotta, but didn't tell Madeline because she was afraid insanity might run in the family. So I suppose she would only become insane if she told her the story of the insane great-grandmother, not...
Yeah,
I mean, that's not normally how it works. Like,
Exactly,
she either
yeah.
will become insane or won't become insane.
Exactly. It's already, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to happen to not. But if she heard the story, maybe she would become more insane. Or
know.
maybe she just get the idea of committing suicide. I don't know.
You know, she might just start thinking about me. That was like his least for story. Like, thinking about, oh, wait, if I tell her that, she might start thinking about, like,
Yeah.
oh, wait, I am sick, or I'm, sick or mentally
Yeah,
ill or
exactly.
something.
True.
But
But then again, the thing about Hitchcock is he's very suspenseful, he's very interesting, but you can't really expect a lot of logic in his stories.
Exactly. Yeah, I know.
Like
These
you're not,
I'm like,
yeah,
oh,
it's a film.
it can work like that. But you're so pulled in, you're just like, you believe it.
Yeah,
Like,
you kind of dismiss the realism of the
Yeah.
things. Would this really happen? Probably not. And then he's back to following Madeline again. They're back at the museum again. You get this voyeuristic feeling, and then you get this beautiful shot of the Golden Gate Bridge as they drive down this highway. And I wondered, is that a real shot or is that matted
Thank you.
I don't know. The first shot I thought maybe might be matted, but then they have a closer up shot of them driving along water at the bay, and I think that looks real. The water's sort of moving.
Because I know it was definitely a mix of both.
Yeah, because I think
remember
the water is moving in the one scene, so
Yeah.
I believe that is a real location shot. And this is when they come under the bridge. Oh, this is such a beautiful scene.
It's
It's a really gorgeous scene.
Yes.
She's standing there with this bridge. He's around the corner with the car. She's actually almost in a shadow.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. She goes around the building, and then she's standing in front of the water, dropping flowers in the bay. And then she jumps in the water. Scotty follows her, rescues her, and then I wrote, I'm not sure I believe this is the actual bay in this particular part.
Not, yeah.
It looks like a swimming pool.
That's the one. Yeah, it was definitely like it went from being location to stage
That does not look like water in San Francisco Bay. It literally looks like a swimming pool or something.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, this is not real. They didn't really jump into the bay, I don't believe.
No, it was definitely a stage, I think.
See, that's not David Lean. Like he made poor Katharine Hepburn fall into the canal in Venice for real.
So I want realism.
Yeah, he wouldn't play that. Then he emerges carrying Madeline, and then you see that same background scene. Now you're back to the actual location. And then, bam, he's in his house. He's in the living room, and then there's a nice pan over to the kitchen. You see her clothes all hung up, and then it keeps panning into the bedroom, and you see her lying in bed. She's kind of talking in her sleep. The phone rings, and it wakes her up, and you notice she seems to be naked.
I know. I was like,
she's not wearing anything.
And they say,
yeah, how did that happen? I don't think she did that herself.
I know. I was one of the things I was like, ooh. It's like, don't worry.
I didn't look. I didn't look. I closed my eyes the whole time.
The lights are off. I'm just good with my hands. I didn't.
Well, I didn't really look when I did it.
I'm sorry she didn't ask it.
He offers her a robe and closes the door to give her privacy. Okay. Like, you already saw it all,
trying
buddy.
to redeem himself, like, yeah.
Well, let me give you a robe. So, you love my James Stewart impression. And so she winds up coming out, and it's obvious at this point he's smitten with her. I mean, he's gazing at her lovingly, and he tells her she fell into the San Francisco Bay. And there's a lot of cross-cutting close-ups here. She says she doesn't remember falling into the bay. She sort of, in this whole part, is just in this sort of trance, like she's playing this sort of trance-like state. Let's stop for a minute and actually talk about Kim Novak, because I don't think we've mentioned her.
Not the details.
Kim Novak. She plays Judy / Madeline. She was born Marilyn Pauline Novak. She was a troublesome student, didn't like being told what to do by teachers. After school, she would take up modeling and had some success. She would go to L.A. and get a contract with Columbia to be the next Rita Hayworth, or Columbia's Marilyn Monroe, which is odd because Columbia had originally signed Marilyn Monroe and they let her go. So they could have had the real Marilyn Monroe, but they didn't see the value at the time. Anyhow, I digress. She would get involved with Sammy Davis Jr., but had to end the relationship because Columbia did not want one of their stars in an interracial relationship at that time. That was a big no-no back then.
Yeah,
especially at least in Hollywood. Yeah. And I think in real life.
Yeah, back then.
That's why you have the film Guess Who's Coming to Dinner?
Yeah, that was
addressing that exact subject. She worked in film throughout the 1960s and 70s and did some television work on the show Falcon's Crest in the 1980s. She lives on a ranch in Oregon where she and her husband raise horses and llamas. Kim is also an accomplished artist and has exhibited her paintings in galleries around the country, and she is still alive at age 91.
Yes.
Yay.
Yeah, beautiful. I love it.
Good job, you. Okay, back to the thing. He starts quizzing her. Where were you this afternoon? She says she was downtown shopping. He gives her some coffee. Then she starts quizzing him. Where were you? And he tells her, I was at an art gallery. Hint, hint.
Yeah.
And she was like, I've never been in there. And he's like, what? She said, and then they introduced themselves because they previously had never met each other. And he says his name is John Ferguson, but his friends call him John and his acquaintances call him Scotty. Yeah. We still don't know why that is. And she says she will call him Mr. Ferguson.
And he was like,
he's like, no. You can call me John. I've saved your life. Yeah. Although, you fell in the bay and I saved you. And then she tells him she's married, and he asked her, has she ever fallen into the bay before? Is this a common occurrence? Do you always fall into the bay? And she says no, and there's a lot of close-up cross-cutting here. Then the phone rings, and he closes the door. It's Gavin on the phone asking about Madeline, and Scotty's telling him what happens. And Gavin says, Madeline is 26, and Carlotta was 26 when she committed suicide. Dun, dun, dun.
I know. I'm like...
I mean, Bernard Herrmann is not that obvious, but
that
was our own sound
effect. Cue,
he didn't do that.
Yeah.
Scotty hears the door closing. He rushes out, and Madeline is gone, and her clothes are gone. She is very fast at change.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the same thing. I was like, wait,
super fast.
Like, did you-
She's like Superman.
I know. I was thinking, wait, hold on. Like she could. I thought the same thing.
She's like Superman in the phone book.
I was like 30 seconds in the conversation, and she's out fully dressed, everything in the car and gone.
Yeah, and
Like-
but who sees her leaving the apartment? Midge. And Midge gets very jealous, very upset. She's like, oh, what's going on here? And then next we see Scotty is now following Madeline again. Like I said, this is just throughout. And most of the street shots you'll notice are all downhills. You don't ever see them going up a hill. She actually winds up going, she follows her to his own house. She goes to his house and she was planning to leave a letter saying she was apologizing. He says he enjoyed spending time with her and she says she's enjoyed talking to him and he invites her in and she says no. And then she said... One of the things she says in here is Coit Tower led her to him, which is funny because they said Hitchcock put Coit Tower in there specifically as a phallic symbol because it's this big.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's an interesting. I don't know what's the word. Some subliminal message. Subliminal message.
Yes.
But she's going to leave. She goes to get her car and follows her. He asks her where she's going, and then he said, "Oh, why don't we wander together?" There's this thing about wandering a lot. Yeah, they talk about wandering.
I'm a wanderer.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do? You just spirit wanderer.
I'm a wanderer.
I know, but it's like, we can't wander alone. It's like, well, you know.
Yeah, let's wander together.
Yeah.
Okay, and this scene I love too. Well, first there's a view of the road and hillside, and I think that might be an actual location shot. But then when they get into this forest,
it's beautiful.
They're really pretty in this forest. They're looking at this tree. She says she's thinking of all the people that have been born and have died while the trees go on living. She says she doesn't like knowing she has to die. This is a very deep scene. She says a lot of very deep things in this scene. And then they show a cross-section of the tree, like showing how old it is in comparative to historical events, which is really interesting. But then she starts to think she's Carlotta again. She starts talking like she's Carlotta. Yeah, she walks off into the forest, and I said really pretty scene with the trees. There's a pan and sinister music. This is the POV shot when he can't find her at first. And then he finds her leaning against a tree, and he keeps questioning her, trying to find out what the heck is going on. He believes that she's in some sort of this mentally ill state that he can snap her out of. That's what he believes.
Still in detective mode, trying to like get down to the bottom.
Yeah. He's behaving like a therapist. Yeah. And I thought it was interesting. She says she asked him to take her somewhere in the light. Yeah. There's a lot of things she keeps talking about darkness and lightness and darkness and lightness throughout. Yeah. The music is quieter. You can hear birds and natural sounds of the forest. Same when they go by the water, you can hear the waves even over the music, which is nice. I like when they have the natural sounds. It makes a nice background. And it's even a little more suspenseful to me when you have the natural sounds, more so than the music sometimes.
Yeah, when you go from hearing the music, then you hear like the organic instead of the natural sound of that. It really just puts you in. It takes you out. I mean, you just hear like, you hear like those waters, it's little things like that. I mean, no, I agree.
And this was, this was nominated for Best Sound. Yeah. And I suspect it's because of things like that. Yeah. He's trying to figure out what she remembers. She starts talking about a bell tower and a mission and a garden and a village in Spain. She thinks it's in Spain. And then she says she's mad. This is what the explanation is. The only explanation can be that she's mad. When they say mad, they mean insane. They don't mean angry. Yeah. And he catches her by the sea, says she's not mad. She says, I'm not mad. I don't want to die. I'm afraid. And then he kisses her, and then there's a big spray from the ocean. Such a stereotypical I've seen that done in other films. Maybe it's
that might have been like one.
It might have been particularly referring to that. And then you go to poor Midge in her apartment, and Scotty comes in, and Midge asks, "Oh, did you get my message?" There's a lot of little undercurrent talk here. She says, "Oh, I was just wondering where you were." Yeah. And he says, "Oh, well, you seem desperate to see me." She's like, "No, I just asked where were you?" But it's like they know each other so well.
He sensed it too. I sense a little undertone.
Yeah, there's a lot of undercurrent. Yeah. I said they almost seem to know what each other is thinking, and they're almost playing a game, almost with each other. And she asks what he's doing. He keeps saying he's wandering. Yeah, that's all he'll tell her. And then she says she's going back to painting, and she wants to show him the painting. And then the painting is a picture of her face, but the whole rest of it is Carlotta. And he is upset.
Yeah.
He's not amused.
Yeah.
He leaves. He said, that's not funny. And then she gets really upset. She's so angry with herself, and she's clearly in love with her.
Yeah, I was feeling bad too. So I was like, you can't be doing that.
Yeah,
I was like, you can't be doing that.
There's just this dark shot of San Francisco, just a real quick dark shot of San Francisco out of the blue. And it's like, why that shot there? The sort of the scenes with Scotty and Midge are lighter, even though that was a sad scene. Yeah. They're lighter scenes, but then it's almost symbolizing now we're going into a dark scene or something.
No, I agree, yeah, because there's scenes like the apartment scenes. It's always like this, even this lit very well. You know, everything like this, lighter, the tone's lighter, is well lit, and then when you leave, and it's back to that darker tone, which I believe it is. This more setting up because he's getting deeper in, maybe just into that. Because after, they kissed, and then he knows that there's a lot going on with James Stewart, Scotty.
John Scotty.
It's definitely nice. So I think it's just a little more extra texture with that, adding more to the...
So the next thing is Scotty's back in his apartment, and Madeline's there. She's upset. She's had this dream again. She's talking about the mission. She's describing the whole scene in the dream. Mm-hmm. And then he starts describing the scene. He's like, well, wait, was there this? Was there that? And she's like, yeah. And he said, oh, I know where this is. This is an old Spanish mission. And he said, you've probably just been there. He still, at this point, is thinking that this is some sort of psychosis thing that she's going to come out of. And she says specifically, in her dream, she's on the green, she's starting to walk towards the church, and she's pulled into the darkness. This is what I mean when I say there's a lot of talk. She talks about light and darkness a lot.
I know, because even in the dream, because the darkness, even describing a dream with the graveyard and stuff like that falling in. So I think a lot of that is just, and of course, when we get to that point later on, it gets more darkness as well. So I feel like the dark and light, even I wonder if the character knew she was speaking. I don't want, of course, go too far yet, but symbolism is
And then he wants to take her to the mission. And in this scene, there's a very high angle just showing the top of their heads, and they're walking along. And I wondered why the high angle all of a sudden. He doesn't really do it anywhere else in the film. It's just when they start to go to the mission, he starts leading her out of the apartment.
Yeah, actually,
and I was like, why all of a sudden? So I don't know.
Yeah, I gotta go back.
Maybe somebody else can try to figure that out. And then again, they're traveling in the car. Travel in cars a lot.
Yeah, that's
There's big trees. There's a beautiful road with big trees all along the side. And then at the mission, they start out with a shot from the arches of the church, and then panning across, they pan down to the livery stable. Everything she's mentioned in the dream, that they pan across and show all those things. It's really interesting. And she's sitting in a carriage in the livery stable. She's trying to remember when she was last there. She's talking about the horses that were there at the time. Again, she's talking like she's Carlotta. And I like this shot of her from the back while she's sitting in the dark, and you see out into the light.
I love exactly.
It's like, again, she's in the dark, but she can only see out into the light. She can't.
I think that definitely is getting more later. It's almost, I'll wait to get to that point. For John's character, where it definitely is like a lot of dark to light, Just after you're now talking with someone, really more coming in my head, that because definitely that shot, because that's when you say, oh, there's great, the gray horse is right back here, you got the
and she's not even looking, she's just looking out at the light,
straight static shot. And I love that shot. My first time I was like,
it's a great shot.
That's a screen grab shot right
there.
It's
beautiful.
Yeah.
And then he tells her he loves her. She says she loves him, but she has something she has to do. She keeps looking, she's trying to look towards the church, and she keeps looking out, and she keeps saying, it's too late. She runs across the green into the church, just like she said in her thing. She's trying to get away from him. He's trying to follow her and stop her. He still has this weird belief that he's going to cure her of this problem. So she said, I just want to go into the church by myself. Just let me go. And he's like, okay, go ahead. Yeah. After all this, go.
Yeah.
So anyhow, and then I put shot of the bell tower. Now that's not real. The bell tower is not real. It wasn't there. There's no bell tower there. That was an actual model. You'll notice you never really see the church and the bell tower all together that much. Yeah, they created a model of the bell tower because Hitchcock wanted there to be a bell tower, and there wasn't. So obviously they couldn't construct one on the spot. I mean, they can do a lot, but they can't just make a bell tower into a church there. So he winds up chasing her into the church. He realizes, well, maybe she shouldn't go in there by herself. So he chases her into the church. He's following up the stairs, but of course, as he starts to go up the stairs, you get your little, your dolly zoom thingamajig, and he's looking down the stairwell. It's a really interesting stairwell because it's a round wooden stairwell, and then when you look down, it's sort of like a square. It almost looks like an elevator shaft in a way.
It does, yes.
And then when they do the dolly zoom thing, it's really interesting looking the way they do that with that particular shot.
I love how they did for our shot because it's such a close quarter shot. You know,
Yeah.
it's one of those shots that you like to really still create that effect without. I love to see on a set. You know, I gotta look up like see me behind the scenes like photos.
Yeah, how
like,
did they do that?
Yeah, because if they really
were they standing at the top of the stairwell with
Yeah.
the camera on a dolly?
or something. Yeah, that might have been that. And then 'cause you got to pull it. You know, we can do like with in camera ourselves. You got to do at the same time, like pull back at the same time. But of course, you know, it's just a little bit tricky. But I wonder if they did that, how they did it on that particular scene. You know, because it's harder because it's more tight quarters. But.
You must think Robert Burks is pretty darn good.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah.
So, of course, unfortunately, he's trying to get up the stairs, and this happens several times. This zoom thing on the stairs, you can tell he's starting to suffer from this,
Higher goes.
you know, vertigo and so forth. And then he can't even get up the stairs. He's kind of sort of towards the top, but he's not there. And then all of a sudden, he's standing by a window, and you see this. You hear the scream and you see the body of Madeline falling past the window, and then he looks out the window and her body's on the roof below, like one of those.
In the very that
typical chalk.
Yeah,
figure type
chalk,
thing.
yeah.
And then he goes down the stairs, and there's a nice shot from the top of the stairs all the way down to the floor, and then another fake shot of the tower. Looks like it's matted in. And then this part, good Lord, what is wrong with this man? Seriously, when they're having this inquest and the coroner is just saying these horrible things about Scotty the whole time, like basically, you're a coward, you're weak, this is all your fault.
I know, like
if you could have been a better man, this wouldn't have happened.
It's like, Dad, was this guy paid to be such a, just really a jerk?
He's very anti-Scotty, this fellow.
Yeah.
And he just says all these really terrible things, and it's making him feel worse and worse.
It'd be on your conscience. Like, it doesn't matter. And he'll say it to, none of it doesn't matter to the actual verdict, just on his conscience.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, thank
exactly.
you.
Like, this is irrelevant to the subject,
really is,
but just
everything.
by the way, this guy's a coward and a weakling.
I know. Just want to let you guys know that. Just a few times.
And then they bring back the inquest verdict of suicide while of unsound mind. Luckily, not helped along by the weakness and cowardice of John Scotty Ferguson. And then afterwards, Gavin comes up and talks to Scotty. He's apologizing for that. He said that's very rough. He had no right to talk to you that way. And then he tells him he's leaving. And this is another thing. Why they shot this like that? They're both talking at the window. Both have their backs to this camera.
Like,
while he's talking about leaving.
I think, I know these later on, I'm just curious if they were shot like that because...
Why are their backs to the camera in that scene?
It's just like, it's almost... Because I know... For later on, during Scotty's certain sequence, something get a vision there. I wonder if it's more so just to fill that area, even though the backs were turned though, but another character wasn't turned the camera. I don't want to spoil. I don't know how far whenever to a certain sequence, but I think it was more so maybe for that particular shot because another character appears in that same frame later in during his vision, his sequence later in the film, and the backs are still positioned the same, but another character's looking at him.
Yeah.
So but. She's facing the camera. So I think it might have been more set up for later because they replicate that shot. So at least that was my first.
No, they're probably right because I didn't catch that. I mean, I saw it in the dream sequence or wherever that is. It's at some point.
I don't want to. I know we get to that. And we can talk about it. At least that's something think that.
Yep. And then Gavin says very meaningfully, we know who really killed Madeline. Meaning Carlotta. Anyhow, and then Scotty's back in the graveyard. There's another low angle on him again, and now he's at Madeline's grave this time. And then it goes to the city at night. He's in bed, and the light is changing his face from. This is the dream sequence.
Perfect.
The light changing his face to blue. There's this blinking blue light, and then there's all these animated flowers and graphics, and there's a lot of blinking colors, a lot of blinking and noises like castanets. I thought it sounded like castanet.
Yeah, like little click.
Yes.
And
then you see Carlotta. It's blinking red. There's an open grave. His head is falling. It's just his head.
Just his head. You see his head just falling, just deeper and more, and it's just getting more just sucked in. And that's why I was thinking about the darkness as well, because I think there was a lot of because there was at least a shot thing went straight into the grave, which was dark, and then so it felt like everything that at least from my take when he was experiencing is what Madeline was experiencing, maybe may not just like that, but everything seems like flashes, and then he sees Claude. Where that scene where he was standing there talking to Gavin, she's there looking at him. That's why I was wondering if they did that shot on purpose because she was facing the camera but looking at Scotty, and but still they replicate that shot. So I was wondering if that was, the answer to that, because the whole sequence was wild.
Yeah, and then they show him falling. It's like he went back to the beginning. He's falling to the roof, but then he wakes up and he's all horrified. And then the next thing is he's in his room and Midge is there. This is when he's had a traumatic break.
Yeah.
And he's now unresponsive and he can't talk to anybody. He's in a sanitarium actually. And Midge is in there. She's trying to play him Mozart. He's not responding to anything she says. Yeah. She calls herself his mother. She says, "Mother's here. Try. You're not lost."
Yeah.
It's an interesting choice of words.
That was, because I know that was more so just for comforting, because just to get to him, just like how mom would if you hear.
Like a lost child.
Exactly. That was my main takeaway from that, but still, I know it was definitely, I just hoped there was more towards that, and this was like some stuff we don't know about between these two. They call each other daddy and mommy. Yeah, so maybe, but yeah.
Yeah, and then he doesn't respond really, or he looks at her, but he doesn't say anything. Yeah. She tells him she's here. She walks down the hall. She wants to see the doctor. She wants to know when he's going to be pulled out of it. And the doctor says he's suffering from acute melancholy and guilt complex. And then she tells the doctor, well, he's in love with this woman who's dead, and he still is. And then there's this nice shot of her walking slowly down the hall. The hall scenes are really nice. The deep focus hall scenes are nice.
I love actually hallways, just shots in general. It's in
hallway
movies.
Shots are nice.
And when I see them in movies, my one friend knows that he'll send me shots of a hallway just on purpose. It's like a hallway, and I'm like, thank you.
Yeah,
because it's very cool. I like the depth, the leading lines. Yeah.
And then now
he
all of a sudden he's back to regular. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, he's back to his usual ways of stalking Madeline, even though she's not there to stalk anymore. He's in front of her building. He sees her green car out front, and Scotty, he's there. And then he's going to go through these series of things where he sees these women in gray suits with blonde hair that's done up like Madeline. He thinks they're all, and he goes running after them, and it's some older lady, and he says, "What are you doing with this car? Where did you get this car?" And she said, "Well, Gavin sold it to me." And he's like, "Okay, I'm acting crazy." And so then he goes to Ernie's. He keeps going to all these places, and he's at the bar. He sees another lady, gray suit. He thinks it's her. Art museum. He goes to the art museum. The same thing happens. He goes to the flower shop. He goes to all these places for whatever reason. And then as he's at the flower shop, he sees some girls coming up, some young girls, and one of them has a green dress, again green, and she looks like Madeline but with dark hair. So he starts following her. Not too psychopathic. And then she goes into the Empire Hotel, which has a green awning, a green front, and a red sign. And he sees her again in the open window.
Exactly, which I love. Yeah. That was a same exact shot, just different building.
Then next thing there's a hall shot, another hall shot, and they have green walls. And he goes and knocks on the door, and he wants to ask her questions. And she's mad that he followed her, and he says he just wants to talk to her. She says, "Oh, let me guess, I remind you of someone." And then he says, he keeps asking her to come in. He's begging her to come in. And to me, I would be like, dude, get out. Because he is acting very crazy right now. Yeah. And then she lets him in, and he says, "I'll leave the door open." And she's turned and she says, "Well, you don't really look like Jack the Ripper." And then I wrote, "Meanwhile, he looks very strange the way he's standing and looking at her." He does kind of look like Jack the Ripper.
He's tall, Jimmy James.
And he's just standing there in this really strange,
really hunched over.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you don't look creepy at all, 6'4" kind of guy.
Yeah. I don't think that James Stewart looks creepy, but he does look very creepy there.
Especially in that shot, too, because the camera angle, whenever he was standing in the doorway, the camera's kind of low angle from her behind.
Yes.
And you see him kind of standing in the doorway.
He just looks like...
The arms kind of out.
His arms out, he looks very weird.
Yeah, so I'm like...
And then as she's talking to him, she keeps moving back away from him. And he keeps asking her all these questions. How long has she lived here? Where did she live before? She shows him her driver's license.
Which I was like,
she's like, "I'm Judy. Here's my driver's license."
Willing to give this guy all the information?
I might as well just give you my birth certificate, my social security card. Here you go, take everything.
I know I get different times, but I was like, man.
And then she keeps telling him to leave, but then he doesn't leave, and she just doesn't follow up with it. She's like, "Oh, okay." And this is an interesting shot when she's looking in the mirror. She's talking to him, but you're seeing her reflection in the mirror as she's talking to him, which is interesting.
I love how they did that. Yeah, that shot. Yeah. It's one of those. I forget how we call that shot, but I know that it's very distinctive.
It's a very interesting shot.
Yeah.
And then she says, "Do I really look like the lady?" And then she says, "She's dead, isn't she?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then now she's sympathetic to the poor guy. And then poor stalker. Oh. And then she shows him all these pictures of her mother and father. Now they're both in the mirror together, and she's more friendly. He asks her to have dinner, and she's saying, "Why? Because I remind you of her." And he says, "Well, no, because I want to have dinner with you." And then he says he'll be back in an hour. She's very guarded. He leaves. She looks upset. We're going to skip a section here because there's a big reveal here that's, this is a big reveal.
Yeah, I did.
So
yeah.
There's a section there.
Yes.
And then the next thing, they're at Ernie's having dinner, and a lady comes in a gray suit, and he's looking behind Judy, he sees her, and that she starts to get upset at this because she knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And then they go back to the hotel. He asks if he can see her tomorrow. She says, hey, I have a job. I can't be doing this. He says, I'll take care of you. And then there's this green glow on the curtains, I noticed.
Yes, the very, very beautiful,
Yeah. And then she's in darkness, almost shadow.
the
He
silhouette.
says, he says he wants to keep seeing her. She says, it's not complimentary because to want to see me because I remind you of somebody else. And then he says he just wants to be with her. And there's a green tinge from the window on her.
Yeah,
and she agrees not to go to work the next day.
Which I feel is more, I feel like it's even more foreshadowing with that lighting choice, 'cause especially it's a split type lighting where one half is dark and the half is kind of light. So just I feel like it was like at least her body stuff, which I really love that shot. It was actually one of my favorite shots of the film. Because the lighting itself, I love lighting, the green neon light outside beaming in on her. And like I said, definitely a choice for that, which I feel like, more to Judy. So, to say. So, which I love that.
Yeah. And then there's a beautiful scene of a dome building with a lake. There's ducks and birds. There's couples on the lawn. Then they're dancing. And now he's getting her flowers. He's pinning flowers on her. Says, we're going to buy you some clothes. He says he wants to buy her clothes. She doesn't want him to. They're at the clothing store. He wants to find this gray suit that looks exactly like the Madeline suit. Yeah. And the poor girl, she's like, I like this one. And he's like, just disregard. No, it's not right.
I know.
It's not right.
I love how the stylist, the woman who owns the shop, is like, man.
She's like, you know what you like.
I know. I'm just like, as far as her, like, dang. I'm like, man, relax. I know, because I guess
fooling this poor girl.
Different times, my mind, I always got to forget different era, because I might have been very, of course, very, very
true.
common.
That's
too,
true.
so.
That probably wasn't uncommon in that era.
Yeah.
But finally, they find the proper suit, and poor Judy, she doesn't want to wear it, and he just keeps insisting she do things. Yeah, and then he wants her to wear her dress like Madeline, wear her hair like Madeline, and all these things.
Hair color, everything. Yeah.
So she's back in the apartment. She wants him to leave her alone. He said, hey, these are the only happy days I've had. She said, oh, because I remind you of her. Can't you just like me the way I am? And then finally she says, well, if you will just like me, I'll dress like her so you can like me. And I'm like, oh, come on, girl.
I know. I'm sitting there
come on, girl. Have some self-esteem.
I know. It's
please. Like, you can get another man. You don't need old man James Stewart.
You're a beautiful woman. He's like, just,
and then he can't just leave well enough alone, because then he's like, well, your hair, can we do something? Your hair, can we change your hair to blonde?
Because even when she does change her hair to blonde, then that is not done up with the hair.
And it wasn't done the right way. Exactly. And she says, if I let you change me, will you love me? And he says yes, and she says, well, she'll do it then. And I was like, oh, come on. And then they go to the beauty parlor, they get the hair done, and then he's upset that the hair isn't done up the way, and he forces her to do the hair up the way it is. It's just too bad. When he's waiting for her to come back from the beauty parlor, he's looking out the window, he's looking up the hall, he's looking out the window, he's pacing, he's all anxious. And then when she comes back and she has to redo her hair, you get that green glow again.
Yeah.
Especially when she comes out of the bathroom and the door opens. It's really, really interesting when she first comes out of the bathroom and he's sitting down. She comes out of the bathroom. He turns. There's a close-up of her face. There's a ghostly light by the door, but it becomes more real, more sharpened as she comes closer. It's very interesting.
I love that shot, too, because it was almost like just like a ghost coming to life.
It was like that. That's exactly what it was like. I think that was the point.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah, I was like, man, because I was getting trippy. I was watching, and I was like, man, I'm like, because it is something that would be something. Imagine being his, being in a situation like that. You see someone that it could be even a family friend or loved one, anyone. It's anyone. You see someone come through the door and that type. It would be like almost like I'd be more scared. I'm like, oh, this is really like you look 1-to-1. So that was.
And then it says she looks just like Madeline, and he kisses her. And then it's interesting when he kisses her, because suddenly it goes dark all around them, and then they're back at the livery carriage real quick. There's like a flashback to him kissing her at the livery carriage, and then again it's dark again, and then back to the room. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that was definitely another extra foreshadowing.
Yeah, and that's a kissing, romantic, dramatic music. Yeah. And then it's a fade to black, and then she's talking from the bathroom. Should we go to Ernie's? This is our place. And then she comes out, she says, oh, do you like me? She's wearing that black cocktail dress now, like Madeline. And then she's putting on her jewelry. and we can't go any further. We'll just say she's putting on some jewelry that attracts his attention.
Yes.
So that's Vertigo.
Yes. Okay. Oh, dang. Okay. All right. That's. Oh man. Okay. That's. I know we got. But yes. Oh.
So we do a rating system.
Okay.
1 to 5.
Okay.
You can do halves. You can do quarters. You can do 0.75. Whatever you like. What is your rating of Vertigo? 1 to 5.
1 to 5. It's.
It's a hard thing to rate.
I know. It's one of those ones. I'm always like, it's either 4.5 or 5 for me. Like it's like I don't even think to really actually. And it's one of those films. I feel like I probably because I'm always one. I feel like I probably give it that 5 just because of there's things I want to talk about, but I know don't want to spoil with just certain scenes or characters. I don't want to go. We can talk afterwards about it, but for me, I probably give it a 5 because it's one of those films where. Even though there's things I have with it that it's hard to relate to now to then with how the society is now and how we see some things but still being in that mindset back then, it's still very relatable how just a character was just being just that you can see with what we talked about, not giving a spoil with the obsession and what we talked about. It was just, and many people go through that right now is just that feeling is being caught up in a swirl in a vertigo, just, one just getting caught up in that endless cycle. And I just love that. It's sad, but it's tragic, but I just love that. And it's one of things where, for one, that when I watch it, it's like I find something like, because even when I rewatch it and refreshed up again on it again, you always find little extra small things. Yeah. And it's one of those films.
Yep, it is one of those films that you want to watch again and again and catch more stuff.
And it's the whole aura of they still have an atmosphere of the film. I just love it because for one, it's a very slow, because a lot of those driving sequences, but I love a lot of those, even though I agree with the rear projection because I know because I thought of it, I was like, oh, there's your classic rear projection, But when it goes to his POV and you're seeing all that scenery, just that build, I just love all that because it's a very not very fast pace. It's just really that slow build, and he really puts you in especially from the beginning as Scotty's character, James Stewart's character Scotty, feeling his character, which he's our lens to us as well. And the further he proceeds the story, the more so it's just, and I just love it. And then from story aspects of it, and of course from cinematography and music, and I mean it's just I just love it. It's all. That's why I was baffled when I didn't know that the film...
It had a bad reception.
Exactly, yeah, bad reception, which I'm just like...
And bad, not just bad box office, bad critical reception.
Exactly, from both. So that's a double win. I mean, especially for film, you could tell that all his film, I know he put his heart and soul into, but I know this for Alfred Hitchcock. But when you hear that, and that's why he was trying to blame it onto other reasonings, though. But anyway, I was baffled because I just one of those films that I could easily watch just from any scene and get drawn in, any clip, and it's just you could dissect a scene, and I love films like that. So that's why I give it that 5. Like it's like kind of
5.
Yeah, it's because I just love it because I know it's just one of those films that it's an amazing film.
I was slightly remiss and I forgot to talk about poor Gavin. Tom Helmore. It's very quick. Tom Helmore, he was an English actor. He started out working in his father's accounting firm before switching to acting. He would get a lot of stage roles on Broadway before going to Hollywood. He generally played most comedic roles. This is not such a funny role here. Not a very funny role, we'll just say. He was a good friend of Boris Karloff's, even though Boris would go on to marry his ex-wife. He lived to be 91 years old, and he is also known for The Time Machine and Designing Woman, which I've seen Designing Woman, and his character in there is quite funny. But yeah, anyhow, my rating, Vertigo, 4.25. And the reason is because, first of all, I think it is a really good film, cinematography, editing, and score, which are my big favorites. So normally I would give this a much higher ranking because to me that's really strong. I don't like the cringiness of the story. It bothers me, to be honest. It's the cringiness of the story. That's why I've kind of never really loved Vertigo as much as, say, Rear Window or something. Although Rear Window is also a very cringy kind of story in a way, he's spying on people. Yeah. But it's just the cringiness with Kim Novak and James Stewart. There's just something so creepy. And seeing James Stewart playing this sort of creepy character, I don't like it. It goes against...
You're right. No, I hear
it bugs me, and of course the rear projection drives me crazy. But you can't watch an Alfred Hitchcock movie and not see that. So there's not much you can do about that. But yeah, 4.25. Like I said, if it wasn't quite so cringy in the storyline and making Jimmy Stewart this creepy, cringy guy, which is what I suspect why audiences didn't like it. I don't think it was that Jimmy Stewart was too old. I think it was because Jimmy Stewart is playing a creepy, cringy guy, and audiences don't like that.
I understand. Yeah, because I know when I'm watching it, I know he's even because he's first off, it's kind of like okay, like womanizing because with Midge,
He's fine in the beginning. He's
Yeah.
fine with Madeline. He's fine with Midge. It's when he gets with Judy and he gets so creepy. It's just.
And that's one of those things which I love that because he went it's almost he went all in. Creepy.
No,
Yeah.
nothing against it. I think his
Yeah.
performance is excellent, but I just think people don't want to see
yeah.
James Stewart playing that character.
It's one of those. It's really hard. I mean, I know just real quick before I get back, like just like how Gene Wilder, I'll use him for example. How he's of course he was known for his comedies and everybody loved him for his comedies. And when he did something dramatic, when he did like a play, he did something very serious, but people laughed at him because they thought it was something, but he was doing something serious. And it's one of those things I know because Jimmy, he was so, I mean, of course, so many classic films, but he's known for it. And then when he went to that more dark, because rewatching it again, like I said, I was like, Dad, yeah, seeing him so just not how he normally is. I'm like, heck, man, like.
No, you expect this kind of aw shucks type guy, Jimmy Stewart, good guy, Jimmy Stewart. But, it's.
I definitely 100%, see that, and it's just in him being, and after. Even though I was watching it, and I was just saying, I'm like, calm down. I want to jump through.
You're going to, you're getting too over the top with this.
I know,
not his acting, the character itself. Stop. You're being really psychotic right now.
I know, like, you need to be kind of in the
there's something,
jacket.
I think maybe as a woman watching it's kind of off-putting because you're just thinking about being in that situation and how you would feel if a man was acting that way. It's very off-putting.
That's excellent. I didn't never my mind even
like following you up to your apartment and your door, insisting on coming in, not taking no for an answer. That's really creepy.
Because even myself, when I was watching, I'm like, dude, no, she said no, and it's like that should have been it, you know. But
exactly.
but then. I don't want to spoil anything. I know. I'm afraid to say anything to keep going.
I know it is.
Yeah, it's because it's like I always say for Judy's character, that could be equally her as well. I'm just like, this could be a point where everything could stop. Yeah. But you don't, and then things go down.
I guess I would say, too, that I think some of the acting is a little lacking in this particular film. I don't think Kim Novak gives the best performance. No, I think James Stewart is good. Yeah. I think the guy Gavin is fine for what his role is. I don't think he has much of a fleshed out role anyway, so I think he's adequate for his role. But Midge, I actually thought was one of the best parts of the film. I really liked her.
I really like Midge too. I wish I'm after, because I think that's the last time we see her after when she sees him at the.
Except for the alternate ending that didn't happen. Thank God, because that alternate ending would have ruined. Well, it was already disliked, but it really would have ruined it. Yeah. It wouldn't have had the critical acclaim it had today. I don't think if they put that alternate ending on there.
It sucked away everything from the final.
It ended impactfully the way it should.
Yeah,
that's what we'll say. It had a very impactful ending that was a proper way to end the film.
And I love it, especially for a Hitchcock style. It's meant to have the gut punch that we're feeling, just that feeling, but not just trying
we don't have to have spelled out for us what happened. That's one of my biggest complaints with films is when you have this great impactful ending scene, like The Manchurian Candidate is a great example of this, where you have this amazing impactful scene that you should have just ended the film on, and then you have this dialogue of this monologue of Frank Sinatra saying all this stuff, recapping things, and it's like, not necessary. We didn't need the recap. That was perfect. We should have ended it the way right there at that point, which I won't say, but oh my God, how amazing that would have been.
I know.
It's just frustrating.
I hate that too when films do that. But I'm happy that. Because he only did it just because I know I know he had to do it, but I'm happy that the final cut didn't have that.
Yeah, me too.
Just because
he did it for the censors, the foreign film censors.
Yeah. And it was just to have it.
Luckily, they didn't enforce that, thank God. And White Heat is another one where it could have ended where it ended, and then they didn't have to have the necessary talking to. At the very end, like, this is the moral of the story. Not necessary.
No, you just
end it the way it is.
You deflate. I mean, the movie could go from being, at least wherever I could be, like, if it's like a perfection, we're excellent, we're great, we're solid, it will instantly just drop when you do an ending like that. Like, how you feel about it, it just instantly just takes away,
you got to leave people stunned.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you want to do. You want to live. One of the best endings I've ever seen is the Bedford incident. We talked about that in a podcast. The way that ends, perfection.
Yes.
You are stunned. You don't even know what to do. You're like, what just happened?
Yes, you want to see more, wanting to continue. Like, oh, wait, but no, that's it.
Yeah,
That's
it's
it.
like you're done. Yeah, the Bedford incident is a great example of a perfect ending.
And I always said, because the reason why, like, I even love, because, Alfred Hitchcock, because I love suspense as well, and thriller, and that's been one of my favorite genres. And my dad always told me that when we watch a movie, whenever we watch a movie, together, he'd be like, "Oh, don't worry, everything's gonna turn out all right by the end." I'm like, you know what, Dad? When I make a movie, like, my ending was not gonna turn out all right.
No,
it's gonna have one of those Alfred Hitchcock endings.
It's not very artistic.
I might lead you to think that might be like everything's coming together, and then you're like, wait, hold on, then it's boom.
Yeah.
And then it's over. And you're
there's certain films that are appropriate for happy endings, Frank Capra films, or stuff like that.
Yeah.
But a film noir, you definitely don't want that to have a happy ending. There's just films that you expect to have not happy ending. Yeah,
I would like to. That's still one of my goals. I haven't made it yet, but I would like a movie where it's going to be just a gut punch.
Yes, good.
Yeah,
good. But anyhow, we probably should wrap up because I feel like it's getting long. But I do want to thank you, Dell, for being our guest, and everybody should at least go and watch Selah and keep an eye out on Dell because he is going to someday be doing great things, and he's going to be doing collaborations with me as well. So that'll be very exciting. And for Silver Screen Time Machine, Wendy's Classic Film Review, this is Wendy saying goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to our podcast today. Please don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. And please leave us a comment or a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Intro and outro music composed by Heidi Engel. Artwork by Tyler Birch. Produced and edited by Wendy Whittick. Recorded at PCTV Studios, Pittsburgh, PA. See you next time.